Hello there, Ramblers, and welcome to another weekend, and indeed, another episode of Reese Rambles, my weekly podcast all about the latest comings and goings, movings and shakings, and all the rest of it in the worlds of vintage and retro computing, technology, and gaming. Hope you're all doing well out there. And speaking of the weekend, it's a crisp and cold but sunny weekend here in the UK, or at least that's what I'm told. We have had a bit of rain overnight, a bit of a thunderstorm as well. But yeah, I know you appreciate my weather updates from here in the Midlands, smack bang in the middle of the UK. And while we are talking about personal business, personal updates, I guess, of course, there's one more important piece of news to talk about, and that is the London Marathon, which I'm going to keep banging on about for the next few weeks because Catherine and I are running that. It is the last weekend in April, so that'll be the 27th of April, and the fundraising for that is going rather swimmingly. So she smashed her target rather a long time ago, but I need to raise £2,500. And yeah, I'm at 60% already, so thank you ever so much to everyone who has donated. That's 1,520 out of the £2,500, and I've only been fundraising for a few weeks, of course, if you remember, because I was a late entry into this. I was actually on their reserve list. Had a call out of the blue asking, basically letting me know that someone had dropped out. And yeah, I took them up on the offer. I have run one marathon in the past, if you'll recall me talking about that. That was back in 2018 in Birmingham. And I do like to stay on top of the fitness and stuff. So I'm not too worried about that aspect of things. I just need to raise some money for this fantastic charity for breast cancer now. And on that note, I did mention last week that I was planning on doing a live stream. And the plan for the live stream is that I'm basically going to be playing through Doom, my favourite game of all time. Of course, I've got the Doom shrine here, back here as part of my studio backdrop. And just to make that a bit more interesting and a bit more spicy, I have this. Well, I have a few of these, actually. This is called Cacodemon 2, Hell on Earth Imperial Stout, and it's 12%. Now, I am not a big stout drinker. I haven't actually tasted this yet. I guess it's like cocoa based. It's made by a company called asvexbrewing.com. Hashtag not sponsored. I actually bought this. It's probably going to be disgusting, to be honest. I mean, I'm sure there are plenty of people out there who do appreciate a good stout, and apologies to you, but not my usual choice of tipple, I must say. I might actually take one of these home tonight and just try it, just to be sure. But yeah, I'm going to be drinking these, we're going to be hanging out, and we're going to be playing some Doom together. And of course, I'll be sharing the link to my Just Giving page, so those of you who are in a position to donate and who choose to can help me to raise a little bit more money for this charity. And of course, anything donated through Just Giving does go directly to the charity, which is really cool. But that is that. I'll probably stop banging on about that for now for this episode anyway. So yeah, let's get into our first bit of retro gaming news for this week. My first story this week is all about a game that I haven't played, which is quite unusual, I guess, considering the particular genre of this game and its era. You'd think that it would be right up my street. And indeed, it is one that I did try at one point, a few years back, and I just didn't get on with the controls. So this is quite an exciting piece of news, particularly for me, and particularly as a fan of this particular studio and their particular remasters. So yeah, with those particulars out of the way, let's dive into the story. So this is System Shock 2, of course, first released way back in 1999, sequel to System Shock, which, to be fair, is probably less of a cult classic than its sequel. And the announcement this week is that Nightdive Studios are releasing a remastered version of this. So, yeah, I think before we get into the intro, let's have a quick look at the trailer here, because it's quite short and sweet, but does show some of the kind of remastered graphics and things. And, of course, Nightdive in the past have done, remasters of Quake and Quake 2, Doom 64, loads of kind of first-person shooters of that era, and I have played and enjoyed all of them very much so. I've always been a big supporter of their work and always kind of sung their praises from the rooftops. So again, this will be another one of their releases that I will be picking up when the time comes and playing through this, actually having the opportunity to play through this cult classic game from the turn of the century that somehow managed to pass me by back at the time. I guess I was too busy playing Half-Life and Deus Ex and when did Max Payne come out? A couple of years after that, wasn't it? Anyway, such a great era for this particular genre of game. Of course, Doom 3 as well around the same time. And I kind of know a little bit about the story behind System Shock 2. I think it's about, there's like an evil AI thing, and it's set on kind of this space station, and you have to kind of stop the AI from murdering people. Of course, Shodan, I think is the name of the main character. I should have done some research on this, but I guess there's actually an argument for kind of keeping myself in the dark a bit now, knowing that this is coming, and actually kind of experiencing this game for the first time, as if it was 1999, but with some modern niceties. Like having it running nicely on my modern PC with modernised controls and all that other fantastic stuff that Nightdive are, of course, known for. So yeah, it's the 25th anniversary of System Shock 2, which is why they have decided to go ahead with this remaster. As we can see from the trailer here, the release date is the 26th of the 6th, so that's the 26th of June this year. Of course, Atari owning the rights to System Shock nowadays as well, so a bit of an Atari connection, which I'm sure fans of this channel will very much appreciate. And if we head on over to the Nightdive Studios website and their official page for this, as we can see, it is available to pre-order now on Steam, on the Humble Bundle, and indeed on GOG.com, Good Old Games. We've got some screenshots here. Of course, these are just screenshots from the trailer that we've just seen, but some nicely, I think, sympathetically upscaled and slightly polished graphics, but nothing completely redone or reinvented in that way that Nightdive are kind of known for. I think their remasters are very kind of authentic to the source material, just making them a bit cleaner and more polished and easier to play. Dark Forces, that was another one that they did. Was that last year or the year before? Yeah, that was a particularly good one, Dark Forces. So one of my favourite games of all time. So remember, this is the text on their official website, by the way, if you're not watching this on YouTube and you can't see my face. Remember, it is my will that guided you here. It is my will that gave you your cybernetic implants, the only beauty in that meat you call a body. If you value that meat, you will do as I tell you. The cult classic sci-fi horror FPS RPG has returned. Yes, it's a sci-fi horror FPS RPG. Yeah, kind of similar to like Stalker, which I've been absolutely loving. Still playing Stalker 2 at the moment. I think I'm getting quite close to the end, but anyway, that's just me getting sidetracked. So, the cult classic sci-fi horror FPS RPG has returned. You awake from the cold chill of your cryo tube to discover cybernetic implants grafted to your flesh, and the crew of the starship Von Braun slaughtered. The infected roam the halls, their screams and moans beckoning you to join them as the rogue artificial intelligence known as Shodan taunts and ridicules your feeble attempt to unravel the horrifying mystery of the derelict starship Von Braun. Is that Von Braun? Probably Von Braun, isn't it? I'm not known for pronouncing things right, so I'm not going to change the habit of a lifetime. Your training has prepared you for this. Choose from 3 specialised branches of the military to utilise unique skills, weaponry and paranormal psionic powers. Upgrade and enhance your skills to improve hacking, weapon proficiency and psionic abilities. Discover cryptic audio logs, encounter ghostly apparitions and conduct research to give you the advantage in combat and unlock exotic weapons and items. Play with up to 3 friends in multiplayer co-op. Co-op works in Windows only. System Shock 2 is a genre-defining experience that establishes innovative gameplay mechanics that are a staple of the FPS and RPG genre today. It has gone on to inspire some of the greatest titles of our generation, with games including Deus Ex and BioShock, 2 of my favourite series of all time. Discover how a haunting story, innovative gameplay and a terrifying atmosphere has made System Shock 2 one of the greatest games of all time. And the Mac OS and Linux versions of System Shock 2 use a technology called Wine to function on those operating systems. And indeed, I also rely on Wine to function. So there we go. PC Game of the Year, USA Today, 1999. Loads of accolades and awards at the time, quite rightly so as well. And of course, this is running on their Kex engine, which powers all of the Nightdive remasters. So very cool to see. System Shock 2. As mentioned at the top of this story, this isn't one that I experienced at the time, and I tried to play it a few years ago and just didn't get on with it. But I appreciate that it's a cult classic and much loved and very much of that era that I am kind of a massive fan of. So very much looking forward to getting stuck into this game when it is released on the 26th of June this year. So stick it in your calendar. In one of 2 videos of the week last week, I talked about a project to recreate a cancelled Sega console called the Neptune. And if you've completely forgotten or you didn't see that episode, just a quick little refresh for you, I guess. Basically, Sega announced this back in the early 90s, and it was going to combine the Mega Drive or the Genesis if you like, with the 32X add-on, which was quite a rare and expensive add-on for that console at the time. One that didn't really take off in a big way, but one that has its own kind of cult following and, it really kind of pushed what that console could do to its absolute limit. So Sega designed a whole new case for this thing, a whole new look and feel for it, released pictures to the magazines, did interviews about it, all that kind of stuff. And unfortunately, when the time kind of came to actually launch it, the world had pretty much moved on to 3D and to the PlayStation. And Sega took the decision to not release that, which, to be fair, in hindsight, was probably quite a wise decision, even though it would have been a cool thing to have had in the world. But of course, modders, modern hardware enthusiasts and the like, being what they are, basically took that idea and ran with it. And as featured in that video by Macho Nacho Productions, a group called the Board Folk, specifically COSAM, who is a member of the Board Folk, took that console and decided to bring it into the real world, to make it a reality. And what a fantastic looking thing it was. Now, you're going to be asking yourself why, well, has there been another development in the world of the Neptune? I mean, why are we revisiting this story from last week? Well, you see, COSAM is at it again with another project. And so this is... let's introduce this thing. This was a video from a couple of weeks ago by one of my favourite channels and a good friend of mine, actually, Jim Leonard. The name of the channel is The Old School PC, and this is a really kind of in-depth, really kind of, technical video, as you would expect from him. And I know that this was a very long time in the making because I've been chatting to him while he has been making this video. 47 minutes long, and this is really, really well worth checking out. So please do go and give this a watch. But this is a video about a very rare sound card called the Mindscape music board for PCs, released in the 1980s, back in the early 80s, 1983, I think it was. And yeah, despite this, in addition to this being a really awesome video in its own right, of course, it has brought the world's attention to this very rare sound card. And when I say rare, I mean they sold a handful of these things, and there's only a couple of them still known to exist and still known to be working. And there's barely any software that supports them. So how does that all tie into COSAM and the Sega Neptune? Well, I'm sure you can see where this is going, because COSAM has now announced over on Twitter that this is his next project. He is recreating the Mindscape music board, this incredibly rare sound card. So all that we've got to go on so far is this, this picture. Basically, I think it's a screen grab from the video. And he's, as you can see, he's started tracing the actual traces on this. All of the chips and things on this board, I will say, are kind of off-the-shelf components. So we've just got like 7400 series TTL, logic chips, and we've got these AY 8913 sound chips on here. As mentioned, of course, there isn't really a lot of software that supports this sound card. There aren't really any games at all that support this sound card. It was very much designed with kind of musical, educational titles in mind. And, a couple of those are demoed in the video. So that is the next project, a recreation of the Mindscape music board. Now, of course, this is nowhere near the scale or the complexity of the Sega Neptune project, so I imagine it's probably not going to take very long. In fact, it looks like it's all kind of been drawn out and done already. But so cool to see these really kind of rare pieces of hardware being made available again for people to investigate and to play with and to actually get their hands on. All right, okay, they're modern recreations, but does that really matter? Does that really lessen the experience at all, as long as it's kind of authentic to the original experience? And again, my hat is off to COSAM and to the Board Folk for their fantastic work in this area, creating these awesome projects and bringing these things back into the world for people to experience. So I wanted to just draw your attention to that. I'm not quite sure where this project's going. I assume it's probably going to pop up on their GitHub at some point. In fact, let's just have a quick look at the Board Folks GitHub. Perhaps there is a Git repository for this project already. No, there isn't. Okay. But yes, I will need to have a chat to COSAM and see what the plan is with this and see where this is going. But just really cool, All that it takes is for someone to show something in a YouTube video and someone else out there can look at it and go, oh, you know what? I could build one of those. And in the interests of professionalism, I should point out that previous story was submitted to my Discord server by Gravitone, a prolific submitter and, of course, much loved member of the community. So thank you ever so much to Gravitone, as was this next story. Now, this one is one that's very much up my street. It's a topic that I do particularly love covering in these rambles. and that is modern Sega Dreamcast homebrew development, or perhaps more accurately, ports of games that the Dreamcast never got to experience back in the day, because unfortunately, it was a console that was cut down in its prime. A very short-lived console, much-loved console, and of course one that brought with it a lot of interesting innovations, like it had that built-in modem, so it actually had built-in online gaming. It had the 4 controller ports, it had the high-resolution graphics output via the VGA connector, and also a console that was very easy to pirate games for because it was disc-based, and the protection on that disc system was broken very early on, unfortunately, which I guess probably did help to contribute to its demise, as well as the success of the PlayStation 2 and, of course, the looming upcoming Xbox, which had kind of started to be rumoured around the time that Sega decided to kill that project off, which is a shame. And, of course, it was, I guess it marked their last ever console as well. But anyway, I could talk about the Dreamcast forever and my love for it. Of course, you can probably see it here behind me on my studio backdrop here, and indeed, this is my actual console from back in the day. But yeah, two of the projects that I have been reporting on, just to get to the point. Two of the projects that I have been reporting on recently. One of them is, of course, the port of GTA 3, which is coming along very, very nicely indeed. Loads of really good optimizations and stuff, and that game's actually starting to look like it's getting very close to kind of being finalized and being kind of complete and playable, which is fantastic to see. Great game in its own right, and indeed one that was actually intended to start life on the Dreamcast, and then development on that version was abandoned in favour of the PlayStation very early on in that project because, of course, of Sega killing the console off. The other one that I reported on was a Doom 64. And, of course, that got lots of really interesting enhancements. I mean, it was basically a one-person job. Of course, Doom 64 released on the Nintendo 64, and a bit of an oddball in the Doom story, I guess. One that was only kind of quite recently accepted as part of the Doom canon. Much aided by the modern remaster by Nightdive Studios, of course. And indeed, it is the developer behind the Doom 64 Dreamcast port who is working on something else, a new project. And that's what we're going to look at in this story. So, this is WipEout, of course, classic, much-loved sci-fi racing game developed by Psygnosis and released on the original PlayStation. And yeah, so basically the headline here, this is over on timeextension.com. The headline is WipEout is being ported to Dreamcast by the same person who converted Doom 64, which I appreciate is something that I've already told you, but there you go. And the story reads, the legendary PS1 racer WipEout is being unofficially ported to the Sega Dreamcast by JN Martin 84, the same talented individual who gave us the Dreamcast conversion of Doom 64. As you can see from the footage shared by the Sega Guru below, which we will take a look at in a second, it's already looking very promising indeed, and it seems that the hard work that went into the aforementioned Doom 64 port has helped massively with this new project. Everything I learned about Dreamcast for Doom 64 applies, explains the developer. Like the library of fast math stuff I keep building up, and fast polygon header manipulation, and music and sound. I started from zero with that project. There you go, fair enough. Sorry, I've just whacked the microphone. Hopefully we'll see similar ports for WipEout 2097 and WipEout 3 in the future, but in the meantime, feast your eyes on the game below. And let's actually just open this up in a new window over here, because this looks very impressive indeed. So this is some actual capture of the game running over on a channel called the Sega Guru. And it's running super smoothly. It's looking really, really impressive. Perhaps a bit more work to be done on kind of the lighting, stuff like that. There's not really any kind of proper lighting effects and stuff as were added to Doom 64, but there's no doubt in my mind that they will be added at some point by JN Martin 84. But it's already looking very impressive and very playable. And yeah, not really much more to say. Of course, this is all built on a standard library, the SDL library for the Dreamcast, which I should mention, which, of course, was kind of developed and used for that Doom 64 port. And also means that hopefully in future there are other kind of games from other platforms that can be ported, very much like Nightdive, which of course I previously reported on, and of course also have a connection to Doom 64 with their Kex engine. Hopefully this is going to lead to a lot more releases of games that sadly never made it to the Dreamcast in the near future. But anyway, WipEout, bit of a cult classic, running and looking fantastic already, and I'm sure there are more great things to come for this project. So another one that's going to be added to my list to keep an eye on and to be reported on in future rambles, but just thought I would make you aware of that. And of course, the link to that and all the other stuff that I cover in this ramble will be linked in the usual places down there in the description if you are watching this on YouTube, or in the show notes if that's supported on your podcast platform of choice. If you're listening to this on Spotify or one of the various other podcast platforms that this goes out on. But yeah, very, very good stuff. Excellent work by the homebrew community, by Jay and Martin, and definitely one to watch. And as that was about the 10th take of that story, and I still managed to completely trip over my words for the entire thing, let's just roll with that take and move on to the next one. In last week's ramble, I talked about the triumphant return of the Pebble smartwatch. And just by the way, as a kind of a bit of an aside, and it's probably a bit too late to correct that story now, but one thing that I did overlook, which is a kind of a massive oversight on my part, was that that project is being run by the original designer of the original Pebble smartwatch. Yeah, kind of important that, Reese. Probably should have mentioned that. But anyway, there is a smartwatch connection to this next story. This was again submitted to the Discord server by James, so thank you ever so much to James. And there is a link down in the description, by the way, if you want to come and join my Discord server and submit your own stories and stuff, or just hang out. It's a really great community over there. But anyway, this is Atari. That's right, Atari pushing even more tat on the community. But again, as it seems to be becoming the case with Atari's recent offerings, it's actually quite cool tat. So yeah, this is over on tomsguide.com, links in the usual places. And the headline here is, it's not just Pebble, Atari is back with a watch that lets you play retro games on your wrist. And this one, unlike some of their previous offerings, supports 4 different games. So that's quite interesting. So the story reads, not to be outdone by the sudden return of Pebble to the world of wearables, another brand of old has announced its own smartwatch. And they do put smartwatch in inverted commas, I should say. The Atari 2600 My Play watch comes with 4 classic games that can be played on its 2.02-inch TFT touchscreen. So we've got Centipede, Missile Command, Pong, and Super Breakout. I bet Missile Command works really well with a touchscreen, actually. Yeah, I could see that working. Yeah, I could see that working well, actually. Anyway, the story continues. These are controlled by a rotating crown that works like the paddle controller and a button designed to feel like classic controller buttons. That's so cool. It's durable too, with the metal bezel and IP68 rating protecting it from the elements in everyday environments. So there you go. You can even play Centipede in the bath, if you like. It costs $79.99. That's very reasonable. The watch ships on June the 10th with 3 bands inspired by different elements of the Atari 2600. The built-in fitness tracker also monitors heart rate, steps and calories burned throughout the day, just like some of the best fitness trackers on the market for $79.99. What? But there's one way Atari has taken a different approach from other wearables on the market by deliberately sacrificing a core feature. The word smartwatch is in quotation marks in the first paragraph because although the company refers to the wearable as such, it lacks what some people would call the defining feature of the product. It doesn't connect to your phone. Is that a bad thing? Yes, there's no Bluetooth and no Wi-Fi, and that seems to be a calculated decision rather than a cost-saving exercise. Designed with selective tech, the MyPlay watch has all your favourite smartwatch features without the data tracking and distractions, the company explains in the listing. No Bluetooth, no Wi-Fi means freedom from non-stop notifications. I'm so going to buy one of these. This looks amazing. What's more, in a nod to the pre-internet days when Atari ruled the gaming roost, the watch is opting out of the culture of software and firmware updates. The software on the watch, MyPlay Watch OS, is sold as is and will never be updated. Well, you bloody well better hope that it works properly then, Atari. Because if there's no mechanism to update it and there's some bugs and stuff in there, you're going to be screwed. But yeah, your MyPlay Watch will never update and therefore never become obsolete, the company writes. You are invited to keep using it until it stops working without worrying about the inevitable slowdown that comes with added features and fixes. They're touting that as a benefit. Okay. It's a very different approach to other wearables. Indeed, one of the key benefits of the earliest smartwatches was as a screen away from screen, ensuring you could pocket your phone and not miss anything. Nowadays, the main selling point is often for health tracking. Indeed, I have my Fitbit here, but notifications remain whether we want them or not. It's hard to say whether this is genius or a gimmick. After all, it's not hard to disable smartwatch notifications if that's your preference. On the other hand, in a world where notifications rudely interrupt every part of the day with seemingly no understanding of what constitutes urgent, it's hard not to be a little bit smitten with Atari's take, whether it catches on or not. And you know what? I'm on board with this. I mean, I know it's Atari and I'm a bit of a fanboy, but it looks cool. It's got 4 really cool games on it. It's got a spinner controller built in and a touchscreen as well. And $79.99. So, yeah, go over to the official Atari product page here. A free limited edition band with it. So, yeah, the bands are all kind of themed. There's a Breakout themed one there. I guess that's Centipede there. These all look really cool. And the Missile Command band looks really cool as well. Oh, my goodness. Oh, I do love this. I like this very much indeed. I'm going to be pre-ordering one of these. Timeless gaming meets modern features. So I'm not going to reread all of the press release because, of course, that was all covered by Tom's guide quite aptly, competently. I don't know what word I was going for there, but yeah, there it is, the Atari 2600 My Play Watch. Thank you ever so much to James for submitting that and for costing me yet more money. Looks really cool. Let's talk a little bit about OutRun, one of the most loved racing game series of all time, I think it's fair to say, and deservedly so. Although I say racing, it's I think the unique thing about the original OutRun, of course, was that the entire concept was that you weren't racing against other fellow humans or computer-controlled players. It was you against the clock, you against the road, across an entire continent. You had to pick your route, and of course the difficulty would vary depending on the route that you took. And each zone having its own kind of unique and very distinct visual styles and stuff. And it was fast, it was fluid. The actual arcade cabinets, of course the original was released in the arcades back in 1986. The arcade cabinets themselves with the steering wheels and the pedals, of course there were stand-up versions and sit-down versions, various sequels and things over the years released on various platforms. And yeah, quite rightly has gone down as one of the most loved and perhaps one of the best series of all time. And my next story is all about OutRun. I think you've probably worked that out by now. And this was submitted by Technic. And I will just say before we get into this that I apparently really made Technic's week last week by featuring his very first submission, which was about the Pebble smartwatch. No less. And you're on a roll because I'm going to be featuring your second ever submission in this week's Ramble. Keep up the good work. So, what's this about? This is a modern fan remake of one of those sequels, Turbo OutRun. So this is Turbo OutRun reimagined in 2025. Free download. This is a video over on a channel called Just Jamie. And I must say, I am very familiar with the original OutRun. OutRun 2 and what was the other one? OutRun Coast to Coast, I think the ones that were released on the Xbox. Love those games, love them in the arcade. But Turbo OutRun isn't one that I've really played all that much. I do remember seeing it in the arcades and it had some quite interesting cabinet designs and stuff as per the original. And seeing the footage here, it does look like it's a very kind of similar concept. But, of course, this is a modern remake, so as we can see, we've got some 3D modelling and stuff going on here. Quite tastefully done, I must say, quite well integrated into the game, like some of the other vehicles and the road and stuff. I don't think it really detracts from the kind of the retro feel of the game. And as you can see, if you are watching this on YouTube, it's very fast, it's very smooth, it's very fluid, which is great. That's exactly what you want in an OutRun game. So what is the story behind this? Well, this is a free download that you can go and get from itch.io at the moment, at least until Sega shut it down. I think Sega aren't too bad with the fan projects and stuff. They're certainly no Nintendo, but yeah, you might want to rush and go and grab this before it disappears. And yeah, this is Turbo OutRun Reimagined. So the headline here is Turbo OutRun Reimagined, relive the golden age of arcade racing. And I'll read this from the itch.io page, sk1ds.itch.io, of course linked in the usual places as per the other stories. Now you can play this online in your browser, but there is a bit of a caveat here and a bit of a warning attached to this, which says that due to performance constraints, the web version is no longer being updated. Consider this as a demo. The downloadable version is much more extensive and includes more features. So you can go and play it in your browser right now, but for the best experience, you'll need to run this on a Windows machine and actually download it and run it. It's a fully self-contained thing. Just download it, hit play, and off you go. So what does this have to offer? Well, experience the ultimate blend of retro racing games like OutRun, Turbo OutRun, Super Hang-On, and even a touch of F355 Challenge. Now, that's a game that doesn't get mentioned enough, is it? Of course, Super Hang-On as well. That was the motorbike game, wasn't it? With the handlebar controllers in the arcade. They've got that down at the Arcade Archive in Gloucester. Well worth playing that. Love that game. And use that kind of sprite scaling technique that OutRun, of course, used, as well as a lot of the other racing games at the time. But anyway, choose your ride. So you can start with 4 iconic vehicles. You can unlock 3 additional machines, including a powerful motorcycle, as you prove your skills on the road. So that's cool. 4 iconic vehicles and 3 additional vehicles. And we have 4 game modes in here as well. So we've got the original 10 race championship, which is split into 2 divisions, and that is racing against rivals. You've got Turbo OutRun, which is racing against the clock and opponents at the same time. There's a 5 race showdown. There's Outrun mode, which of course is based on that original game where you're just choosing your path to the finish line, as it says here, and battling the timer in this nostalgic arcade challenge. And there's cruising mode, where just relax and enjoy driving on a randomly generated road. No timers, no pressure, just the open road. How cool does that sound? Just go for a little cruise, an endless cruise. Algorithmically generated. I like that. That's cool. So you've got the turbo boost functionality in here as well with the turbo button, and you will need to keep an eye on your engine temperature if you use that, apparently. And we've got the arcade controls with a touch of realism. So enjoy the familiar arcade-style controls enhanced with realistic physics. Braking, steering, and acceleration all feel intuitive, but reckless driving will cost you. For newcomers, driving aids like ABS and traction control are available to ease you into the action. And there's a comprehensive damage and upgrade system, so crashing into obstacles or wearing down parts takes its toll. Between races, repair your car and swap parts or upgrade your machine to improve its performance. Every decision matters, and the wrong choice could mean the difference between victory and defeat. So, whether you're a nostalgic fan or a new player, Turbo OutRun Reimagined delivers the excitement of retro arcade racing with a modern flair. Do you have the skill, strategy, and speed to become a legend? So we've got the controls all listed here, but it does say that you can remap them in the options menu, and you can use the keyboard or indeed an Xbox controller to play this game. You've got the parts screen because, of course, you can kind of upgrade and repair your car as you go along. As mentioned, very full-featured modern fan remake of this game, and as mentioned, it's available to download for free. So that's very, very cool indeed. And I just wanted to draw some attention to this because it looks like loads of fun. And big thanks to Technic for submitting this to the Discord. Going to have some fun with this one over the weekend. And that, dear viewer, brings us around quite neatly to my regular video of the week feature, wherein I talk about a video that I've watched in the past week that has entertained or enlightened or informed or educated or, none of the above, I guess. Often they are retro related. Sometimes they're technology related. Sometimes they're just random stuff that I've seen and enjoyed. But this week's video is from a channel that I am a regular viewer of and have been for a very long time, and this is a big channel. You may have seen this. I mean, I watch all of his videos religiously. They're not really kind of high budget, high production things, but they are always incredibly, incredibly interesting. Really lovely chap, really knowledgeable guy, and always interesting to see him kind of tearing down various bits of technology. So if you've been living under a rock and are not familiar with Big Clive, bigclive.com, this is your introduction to him, or perhaps if you know the channel but somehow this video passed you by, this is my recommendation for you to go and watch it. So this is all about those crane games that you see. We have them, but they tend to be in like bowling alleys and stuff here in the UK. But of course you have them at the seaside arcades as well. And they're full of stuffed toys and whatnot. And the crane comes along and you basically control it. You know, you can move it forwards, you can move it left and right, and then you press a button and it drops down, grabs the toy, and inevitably 9 times out of 10 drops it because it's very, very weak. Now, I must admit that I wasn't really sure how these things actually worked, or whether they were. I mean, it's obvious that they're rigged, but quite how they were rigged, or quite how that came about. And Clive actually shows this thing in action. Now, he actually used to work on these machines, so he knows how they work. Of course, he's very knowledgeable about all things electronic and electrical anyway. And he kind of talks in kind of broad terms at the beginning about the concept of them, about these games, and then actually takes the thing apart and shows you what's inside it, talks about the machine itself, how it controls the claw, and how they kind of set the odds on them and everything else. And I thought this was really, really interesting. It's only 7 minutes, 54 seconds. His videos are generally a little bit shorter and directly to the point, generally not really edited, just that top-down shot of him tinkering with stuff, which is why his channel is as big as it is, because it's just a fascinating guy. So Yeah, inside a crane claw and how the crane plays you. And this has actually gone on to be 1 million views this video has got in 2 months. Didn't say it was a new video, just that I'd only watched it for the first time in the past week. And loads of interesting stories and feedback and stuff in the comments as well from various people who have first-hand experience of these games, and people sharing their stories and things. So yeah, definitely well worth a watch. And hey, maybe if you watched it 2 months ago when it came out, you can go back and watch it again. Don't know. But yeah, I've just been digging through my history and I spotted this one and remembered it as being a video that I particularly enjoyed from the past 7-day period. So I thought I would point it out to you. Yeah, really interesting stuff. Seeing how we're getting scammed at the old fun fair. Now, as you're probably well aware, Reese Rambles isn't my entire life. No, this is actually a spin-off of a much bigger YouTube channel called Control-Alt-Reese, where I fix old computers and consoles and things and tinker with them, make them do things they were never designed to do, have a poke around them, tell stories about the history of various things. You know, all this retro stuff. I'm sure you know what to expect if you are a regular Rambler. And yeah, 42,000 subscribers over there. So thank you ever so much to everyone who regularly watches those videos and has subscribed to that channel. And of course, I tend to release things on a Friday, which means that I have just released a video over on that channel. Now, look, between you and me, because you're one of the hardcore, one of the ramblers, I will admit that this wasn't one of my higher effort videos, okay? This was something that I put together quite quickly because the bigger project that I was working on didn't quite come together and I didn't want to rush it. In fact, I am actually going to go off and finish that one this afternoon. That is my plan for this afternoon, after I've had some lunch, of course. So yeah, this is basically a look at some things that I have found around the studio that I thought you might find quite interesting, and I thought I would tell the stories behind them. So yeah, there are 4 different objects featured in this video. There's the Atari Sparrow motherboard prototype, which is a very, very rare thing indeed, with a really interesting story behind it. There's the Puckman game, which is the first thing that I ever bought on the Japanese auction sites. Kind of show that in action. A random arcade control panel from an Astro City arcade machine that I bought for reasons, which will become clear if you watch that video. And then a bit of a tangent at the end about my newfound love for 110 film photography, and show off some examples of that and some of my camera collection. So yeah, a very different video for my channel, and I guess the thinking was that if this one does well and if it's quite well received, maybe it could become a bit of a regular thing, and you know, I could just kind of talk a bit casually about some of my hobbies and some things from my collection. But there you go, a bit of a different video for you this week. Early stats, unfortunately, not looking promising, so let's take a look at those. And yep, 35% fewer views than usual. So 784 views in the getting on for 4 hours that this thing has been public. It released at the usual time on a Friday morning, like I usually do, around 10:30ish, and it's even lost me a subscriber. So yeah, you know, really sorry for offending you with my low effort video, but whatever. So there you go. That's my video. Why do I own these things? It's 8 minutes and 22 seconds long, so a very short one. And of course, that will be linked down in the description if you are watching this on YouTube, or indeed in the show notes in your podcast client. Of course, this isn't just available on YouTube. It's also available across the various different podcast platforms, Spotify, iTunes, and all of the rest of them. But there you go, that's all I have for you for this week's Ramble. So thank you ever so much for joining me once again, and hopefully I'll see you usual time and place next week. That's 2 minutes to midnight on a Friday night, UK time. And yeah, watch out for that live stream on the 11th of April, hopefully, if all goes to plan, raising some money for a fantastic charity, getting drunk, and playing some Doom. And that's it. Bye.